Building a report off an existing query is probably the easiest way to get a great-looking report that displays some fairly complex information from your database. By leveraging the power of queries and feeding their results into the report's record source, you'll create a good foundation from which the report design becomes just a matter of dragging and dropping fields into the appropriate locations. I've said this before about Access, but sometimes all of the wizards and automated object creation features of the program can really get in the way and make things more confusing than they really are. Once you understand what's going on behind the scenes, it's often the case that hand-built from the ground up really is the way to go. Now for this exercise, I've gone ahead and pre-built a query that totals up our customer's lifetime spend with Kinetico. That query is right here called Customer Lifetime Sales. If I double-click on it, we can run it. Here we have a column for customer ID, the first and last name of the customer, and a total of how much money they've spent with Kinetico, as well as their state name that they're from. If I view it in Design View, we can see that we're using the totals row here to add up all of their suggested retail prices of each order. Let's go ahead and close this down and build a report off of this. I'm not going to save any changes to it. Let's go to the Create tab, and in the Report section, I'm going to click on Report Design. Now, just like with forms, the first thing we need to do is connect it to a data source. I'm going to switch over to the Design tab and open up the Property sheet. On the Data tab, we'll find the record source property, and using the drop-down list, we can choose the Customer Lifetime Sales query that I was just looking at. Now we can set up our grouping and sorting levels. We'll come down here and add a group, and if this section isn't turned on, it's the Group and Sort button up here. We'll go ahead and toggle that on, and go ahead to Add a Group. For this report, I want to group all of the employees that are in the same state together, so I'm going to choose to group on state name. Then we can just start adding our fields. We'll come back up here to the top to add existing fields. I'm going to find the state name field here, and I'm going to drag and drop it up into the state name header section that just appeared. The rest of these fields will go into the details section, so I'll click on Customer ID and shift-click on Lifetime Sales. Then I'll just click and drag to drop them down here. Now we can start arranging our form. I'm going to start up here with a state name label. This is where our state name is going to appear, and I don't need a label to tell me that's the state. I think that'll be obvious, so let's go ahead and get rid of that label and move the state name field over. I also want to make it a little bit wider, and then we'll drag this section down a little bit. Next, I want to put my customer information down below here in the details section, but I don't need labels down here each time. So let's go ahead and move these labels up into the state name header section. So every time we move to a new state, we'll have the additional labels. Now, if you click on them, you might remember that in order to move the label separate from the control it's attached to, you need to use this handle in the upper left-hand corner. But if you try and move it from the details section up into the state name header, you'll notice that it won't move across that bar. What we can do is actually highlight all of these here by selecting a box around them, and then press Ctrl-X on your keyboard to cut them to your clipboard. Then I'll come up and click in the state name header and press Ctrl-V to paste them in. Now let's just rearrange them. I'm going to click and drag them down to about here. We'll do the customer ID, then the first name, then the last name, and then the lifetime sales. Now you might notice these little green flags that are appearing in the top corner, and this little flag here, this warning message, that says that this label is not associated with the control. And that's okay, because they're in a different section now, they're not connected anymore. We can actually just press this down arrow here and say ignore this error. I'll go ahead and do that for all of these controls. Great, let's go ahead and move this detail section up and align the text boxes, this is where our data will appear, below the labels that appear above. We'll take the first name and put it here, then our last name, and then our lifetime sales. Let's go ahead and go down to the bottom of this section, and I'm going to find where it says page footer, and I'm going to drag that up to make my detail section very narrow. We'll go ahead and drag it up, and we'll make it tight against the bottom of these text boxes. So now let's go ahead and see what our report looks like. I'll switch my view here to Print Preview. So already we've got a pretty clean and legible report going on here. We've got our Alabama data here, and then within Alabama we have all of the customers that live in Alabama, along with how much money they've spent with the company. If I scroll down, we'll see that we have some Alaska customers, and here's a couple of people that live in Alaska, along with what they've spent, and then we have our Arizona customers, and so on. At this point, the functionality is what we're looking for, and it's working out just fine. Now it's time to start taking a look at some of the refinements that we can make. Let's go ahead and scroll back up to the top. First, I'd like to make this a little bit wider so that I take full advantage of the sheet of paper that we're going to be printing on. Next, I'd like to remove the boxes from all of these data fields. Then, I want to sort my lifetime sales descending so that the highest spending customer in each state will appear at the top of each list. And finally, we need to change these labels a little bit so that they appear on top of each of these data columns. So let's go back into Design View and make those changes. I'm going to go ahead and close Print Preview here. First, let's make our report wider. I'm going to go ahead and close this field list here, and I'm going to drag the edge of my report section out to about 7.5 inches. Then we can start moving these boxes around. Lifetime sales is where our lifetime sales values will appear, so I'll move those over here to the right, and I'm going to make this a little bit wider. I'm going to move this detail section down so I have a little bit more room to work here. We'll click on last name, and I'm going to spread that out and make it a little bit wider as well. Then our first name, I can make that wider. And then our customer ID, I'll make that a little bit narrower here. Let's start working on some fonts. Let's go ahead and change our customer ID font. I can go up to Format. I'm going to make this a little bit lighter gray. So I'll go ahead and choose this color down here. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'll make it 9 points. Then I want to take a look at my lifetime sales values. I want to make sure that those are formatted as currency values. So I'll select it. And then up here in the number group, I'll select this $sign here to apply the currency formatting. Next, I want the labels to appear directly on top of the column. So let's go ahead and select this customer ID. And I'll select this one here. And we'll go over here to the Arrange tab. And I'll make them size and space to widest to make them the same width. And then I'll say Align to left to make sure that they line up right against each other. Let's do the same for the rest. Let's go ahead and select the first name text box and its associated label, size and space to widest, and then align left. We'll do the same thing with last name here, size and space to widest, and then align left. And then finally, lifetime sales, select both of those, size and space to widest, and then align. I'm going to align this one to the right over here. And actually, I need to move my last name back over to where it started. I'll just use the arrow keys for that. Next, we can work on our state name. Let's go ahead and change this formatting. I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Let's say 14 point. We'll make this text box a little bit bigger. And we'll apply a color into the background here. So I'll select the state name header section by clicking anywhere in the background. We'll go to the Design tab and turn on our property sheet. We'll go to the Format tab, and we'll go ahead and change that background color. Right here it says Background 1. I'm going to use this Build button, go to More Colors, and then Custom, and we'll type in our custom color for Connecticut. 0, 114, and 139. We'll go ahead and say OK. And now we'll make this box here transparent so it doesn't have a white rectangle around it. Under the Format tab, Shape Fill, and Transparent. And we'll make all these text labels white. So I'll press Shift to select all of these. We'll go to the Format tab, and we'll change our font color here to white. Finally, let's make these a little bit more human legible. I'll take this customer ID, and I'll add a space here between customer and ID. And we'll do the same for first name and for last name here. Finally, we wanted to add our lifetime sales so that they're sorted properly. So we'll come down here into the Group and Sort section, and we'll add a sort based off of lifetime sales. But then I want to change it from smallest to largest to largest to smallest. That way they sort descending. Let's go ahead and collapse our detail section. And we'll take one last glance at it, and everything looks good. So I'll go over here to the Home tab, and I'll switch my view into Print Preview. So that's looking pretty good. The last thing I want to do is remove these boxes here, and I want to make sure that the lifetime sales label lines up exactly with these data values down below. Because the data values are numbers, they're going to align against the right-hand side of the box, whereas the lifetime sales label here on the top is against the left-hand edge. Let's close Print Preview, and we'll make those changes. First, I'll click on my report anywhere. I'll press Ctrl-A to select everything. We'll go to the Format tab, Shape Outline, and Transparent. And then finally, I'll go to Lifetime Sales. First, I'll deselect everything. Then I'll select both of these, and I'll go to the Format tab and turn their text alignment to the right. Let's go ahead and save this report. I'm going to go ahead and save it as Customer Lifetime Sales. Go ahead and say OK, and we'll take a look at our final result on the Design tab and Print Preview. So there's the start of our report. We can scroll through to see all the records. Here's Alabama and our customers, and their lifetime totals are getting sorted appropriately. I can scroll down here, and then we have Arizona. Oh, and it looks like we have Alaska here, and that's actually in a gray box instead of this green color. That's because by default, these sections have an alternating row color. Let's go ahead and fix that really quick. Go back into Close Print Preview, and that'll take us back to Design View. I'll click on the State Name Header section back here, and I'll look for this alternate back color property. I'm actually going to change that to no color. That'll make sure everything is the same back color. It doesn't alternate for every other section. All right, Print Preview. I'll press the Save button, and now everything is looking good. So with a little effort, we've already got a pretty respectable looking report, if I say so myself. By starting from scratch, we didn't have to tweak any of the pre-made pieces that the wizards tend to put in, and we're able to make it to our specifications right from the start. In the next movie, we're going to continue building on this report by looking at the conditional formatting rules that we can establish for our data.